Hello, and
Well,
welcome to another episode of Two Bits of Marketing. My
marketing.
name is Sharjil Yunus, and I'm joined by Shantanu
Hey
Gupta.
guys,
And today, we're really excited to talk about driving discoverability. It's a thing I've heard too much about, top of the funnel awareness. There's
even me, man.
way too many ways this exact thing is said. But what does this really mean? How is discoverability measured? Like, if you do 10 things, does that mean you've done a great job at discoverability and distribution? Guys, it's time to roll up the sleeves, loosen the tie, get your stationery, heat up that cup of coffee, and take it all in, or some, because the choice is yours in this episode of Theory Made Fun,
Fun.
right? And let's dive right into it.
Mhm.
What is discovery? A brand discovery, let's put
Brand
it that.
discovery, yeah. So discovery is something like there are two ways I think of it like, right? I'm not going by what I read about it or just my understanding of it is one is you know what you want to discover, like you already have a kind of a you have thought about something, you're going into market or you're going into a search engine and figuring out and you're trying to discover is this product or what you want is a right fit. And there's the other one which I love always is you had no clue there's something like this existed, but it was at the right place at the right time for you and you were somehow the target audience for them. So that discoverability is just amazing. And I know I should not get into it right now, but I recently saw an ad on a SkyTrain station at Waterfront in Vancouver. You saw the same
Yep.
one we were discussing about it, and it was hilarious for me. And the interesting part was it like for me it was a very interesting ad. For you it was like yeah it was so what was it? But that's how I love about marketing and the advertising industry is same thing can serve two people differently. The ad said, "Do you poop? How does your poop look? Or
Yeah,
do
how
you
does your
in
poop look or something
group?"
that.
I'm like, "What is happening?" And there was a QR code. I scanned the QR code, and it was about a sustainable cookie dough mix they make in Vancouver. I was like, "Wow, man! Like this really got my attention. If that is what they were looking for, 10 out of 10 for them." Of course, and I think for me it won that way. But for you, it was like,
Yep.
what kind of
It
copywriting
was
is this? But yeah,
because it's also like I've worked in the health and probiotic space a little
yeah,
bit, and at one point I have run a similar campaign in
uh-huh.
Singapore because we had a few clients over there who were probiotic heavy and stuff like that.
Hmm.
That's the idea, right? Gut health, microbials, and
Hmm.
you're all talking about shit and poop anyway. But the thing was, you found it very attractive, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Right? And not through this misconfused sense, but largely I like, whatever, right? Because I didn't find it as exciting, maybe because I was a little more aware about
Could be.
where this is going,
Hmm.
right? It comes from that. Maybe I just saw the ad on like, oh man, I don't care. Because usually some of the things is when I go to the metro station, I'm either going to college or coming back
Yeah.
from college.
And for me, it's not the same,
Yeah,
right?
and I'm just
I do
not
it
in the
once a
mood.
while, and for
Yeah.
me, it's very interesting to absorb everything. And that's again a good point, right? Sometime when you are trying to get your brand or your ad discovered, uh, different sets of people have different
Yeah.
things to do in life, and it might just serve
Oh,
one of them, or it
not
might
just
not
that.
at all.
Like, there's a lot more to metro advertising in itself. Like, at least over here, if you look at it, if you go towards Chinatown, you'll see a lot more Chinese characters in advertising. If you move
That's
towards
localized at Discovery
it's
in a way.
it's
advertising,
very
yeah.
localized, right? And if you move towards Surrey, you'll definitely see a few more Punjabi characters in the
Yes.
advertising, which is very interesting because it's hyper localized to almost each city, right?
Yeah. And they're doing a fine job in that
Yeah,
way.
it
That's
works.
amazing if they're doing it that way.
It works.
But I think I jumped the gun. Now let's hear what you think about
Discoverability.
Yeah.
I think very similar with yours. There is impulse purchases and there are considered purchases,
So he
right?
gave you a more technical term. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, very technical terms.
Yes.
Well, if it's like a more considered purchase, for example, that means there is already category awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and what's really happening right now is consideration towards purchase
Mm-hmm.
to some level, right? Which is you know what you want. Like imagine buying a car,
Yeah.
right? It's not like you'll see a car ad and go, "Best car ever, gotta buy this right now," right?
Never.
It's unless you have that much money. That's a good problem to have if
Or
you have that
unless
much
it's something
money.
like a Cybertruck from Tesla, right? Like that thing really broke shackles of advertising
Yep.
or marketing is because people did not know anything about it and they just put their $100 5 years back and they're still waiting for to start their delivery process or order delivery system process because it just worked for them. Like they did not consider it, they did not want to buy it. But in this case, this concept did not prove well, and that happens one in a million times, like once in
For
a
sure.
million situation. So yeah,
For sure, right?
Go
And
on.
that's another part of it, like impulse and considered purchase. And the second part of driving discovery is it real or is it digital?
Hmm.
To me, that's a very, very different kind of discovery experience. For
Yeah.
example, if you go to a mall or a market, you may find trials by taste,
Yeah.
right? For food and items like that.
Costco does it really, really well.
Yeah,
You haven't been there once, I think.
Yeah.
But they're amazing. Food sampling is too good there. Yeah.
I should. I'm
Yeah.
getting hungry. Uh,
Impulse
but
buy. Yeah.
yeah, something like food sampling is a good example of it,
Yes.
right? Where you're giving people an opportunity to try. The entire concept of freemium
Mhm.
works on driving discoverability and giving people a free sample,
Yeah.
and then people come back for more. At least the idea of discoverability, and the analogy I usually give is the difference between marketing and networking and business networking, right? So everyone knows what networking is. It's connecting with people, having people in your connections, chatting
Mhm.
with them, commenting, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's who you know. Business networking is, according to me, an ability to be recalled for who you are.
Hmm.
It has nothing to do with networking. For example, I know some of like people in marketing who are like, who I recall, I don't know them on a personal level, dude.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, that person's like really great. That is a business network function, right? I can't necessarily that's a network function. Like I know these people exist. I'm part of their network.
Okay.
But when it comes to a project, can I really approach these people for it? Not necessarily, right?
Yeah.
They're not part of my business network.
True.
So your business network is your ability to be recalled in situations largely. To that same point, discoverability is your ability to be remembered should the situation come up, right? Whether it's an impulse buy. For example, there was a category analysis done in foods, right? If you don't have your favorite chocolate in the store, you're more likely to buy a chocolate of the most recent ad that you saw. More
Interesting.
likely, right? Again, not 100%. You might have a second or third or fifth favorite,
Yeah.
but assuming you don't know any one of them, the ad you saw is the chocolate you buy.
That's a brand recall in a way,
Right?
right?
Yeah, it's a recall in a way, and it's also discovery because
Hmm.
you've discovered that via an ad. You haven't discovered any one of the else with the ad, which is why like some of the basic parameters of discovery and this entire concept is you want to distribute to as many wide audiences as possible. Like
Mhm.
there are enough case studies on why niche performance advertising for particular target groups is not as good for brand salience as diverse advertising is. Like reach different people, it's way more effective. Like
Mhm.
the analogy they give is, would you rather shout at 1,000 people or whisper to millions, right? And that's the idea of distribution. You want to be basically a core function of discoverability is distribution driven.
Mhm.
How good you are at distribution is directly proportional to how well discovered you are, right? For example, currently we don't have TikTok.
Yeah.
Right? We will never get discovered on TikTok.
Yeah.
Just as a function of we don't exist over there.
Exactly.
Right? So
But we know that it's one
Yeah.
of the best marketing tool out there in last
correct.
4-5 years. Yeah.
So that's something we have to develop. That's time, and that's another video that we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. That we're gonna figure out our entire distribution strategy live in a recording next
Yes.
week or next to next week.
Yeah.
Because we're in Christmas week almost, guys. So it's a
Yeah.
little busy this time of the year. But coming back to the point of how we can really use distribution to drive discovery, the idea is many distribution channels, a very large scope of distribution, and many people say top of funnel, like screw funnels, dude.
Mhm.
Just distribution. The idea is people should know who you are. They should be aware. That's it. That's all distribution is. There's no reason to make a funnel out of it because it's just irritating. Like, I'll be honest.
But it could be also different, right? Like funnel is a proven marketing
It's a
terminology they work
sales
with.
technique.
Sales technique, and
Right.
also which works with the marketing department
Yep.
because you cannot get people to sales unless they know about it.
Yep.
I feel funnel really makes sense for products such as a SaaS-based industry, which is service as a service, where
Yeah.
you are reaching to B2B businesses, but it's so complicated. There are 15 different alternatives to what you make right now. But you came into the industry 5 years back and you are really trying to expand to different regions. So I think that's where top-of funnel works. But maybe not something you just spoke about food industry, for example. there are millions of products out there, millions of chocolates. The differentiator would just be about how good it is or what really you bring into the table, like organic ingredients, or is cheaper to own. So in this case, I think making sure that you're distributed well makes more sense than worrying about the performance funnel. So I think very important to figure out where you want to put your
Maybe
energy.
not in the chocolate ecosystem, because some problems are the supply chain and distribution problem. You should know which market to enter as well, right?
Yeah.
That's like I'd say a broader business function to like really know and make your maths and figure out, hey, is this profitable? Should I go into this? And of course, this means at a business strategy level, you need to figure out where profit is, what your profit margins are. So that's, I think, a very large take on it to figure out your supply chain and actual product distribution.
Yeah. No, I was just talking overview, right?
Yeah.
You spoke about the funnel. You said don't worry about, but I feel for
point,
some products you need to.
Yeah,
just
for
because
sure.
there's no other way to enter, like a SaaS-based business, like all the
anything
B2B
that's a
is very tough.
considered purchase.
Yeah.
Anything, even a house, right? Anything
Definitely.
that's a considered purchase.
And house business, like that purchase or that marketing or that whole industry is also very saturated.
Yep.
Has so much of inventory right now in the world. But of course, it's always you need to be out there to distribute, but also need to figure out where that top of the funnel is, because those are the ones who are going to really buy the house, right? Not the ones who are just starting their career, they just started to earn. They are not thinking about house right now, maybe next 10 years. So you don't have to worry about them. Good to be there in their mind as a recall 5 years down the line, like, oh, I thought about this real estate company which works, and I could rent out from them, and maybe in the future I could also buy a house from them.
Yep.
But you are not looking at them to run your revenue for now, run your business for today. So I just thinking out loud that way.
Yeah, and there's a
And
lot.
we can also discuss in this conversation next 5-10 minutes where say a new business is starting today, how should they think about discoverability? And
very interesting,
right?
So if you were to think of truly discoverability, right? True discoverability today is either real or digital. And if you're purely talking about the real world, then there's a bunch of stuff that you can do, right? But I don't think the core idea of it is to drive discoverability, right? Because like I was mentioning, the difference between network and business networking.
Yeah.
The core idea of discoverability is to drive memory connections.
Yeah.
Right? So what you're truly trying to do as a new brand or an old brand is drive memorability.
Okay.
Right? By driving more memorability, you are automatically driving discoverability.
So do you think digital would make more sense in that way?
Of course, right?
So do you start so a second part to this question is, do you start at digital first? Because if you're a new business.
I don't think there's any differentiation between digital and traditional in ads and marketing and brands anymore.
Interesting.
It's very, like, when was the last time you saw a newspaper ad without a QR code?
Unfortunately, I don't read any newspaper anymore.
You were telling me just now about the
yeah,
ad.
Yeah.
It was a QR code.
Yeah.
Right? It is a display advertising. It's a hoarding.
But it was still not traditional
it's
in a way signage, right?
It is traditional signage in its every sense. Right? And there was a QR code. I don't think there are very hard differentiators between traditional and modern. Maybe in terms of the advertising realm, because you're buying properties differently. Right? But in terms of a brand salience function, I think traditional does its job quite well. I think digital does its job quite well. I think the great campaigns of today are all about integration. For example, there was this Heinz campaign, right? It was a product shift as well, in the sense that they changed packaging of a bottle.
Yeah.
It was the 33-degree campaign. Have you seen that?
No, I don't think so.
So it's based on Heinz ketchup company. What's the biggest problem with ketchup? Freaking doesn't come out of the bottle, dude. You have to do you have to do full workout to get it out. So the entire ad works on the inside that the bottle needs to be held at 33 degrees. So how did they create a 33-degree bottle? They didn't. They rotated the logo in such a way that the logo was placed crossed like that. So when you held the bottle, you had to tilt it to an angle till the logo was straight. Okay. And that was 33 degrees, and the ketchup would come pouring down. That was the entire insight for that campaign. They didn't change every bottle of Heinz ever. It was one particular lot that was changed, did that, sold those products, made an entire marketing video about it and the campaign and execution. So it had traditional, it started with manufacturing, went into traditional advertising, in product stores, sales, to a digital campaign. That's the correct way to do it. Nice. Right? There's no hard differentiation anymore, I would say. It's very hard to build. In terms of attribution, sure, you
Hmm.
can build better attribution digitally.
Yeah.
Today, that's necessarily not true, because if you're smart about it, you can use very effective real world advertising as well as outreach measures.
Hmm.
For example, in stores, we have in-store movement,
Yeah.
right? How many people are going to what section, what categories, which product are they standing in front of? Where do we want to show, like, if we want to have maximum sales, where do most people come? Where
That's
do
near
most
the
people?
cashiers always,
Yeah.
or the self
So
checkout.
a lot of these things are still digital. Like, it does nothing digital traditional as such, in my opinion,
But
anymore. Everything is
unfortunately,
digital.
the industry still thinks
Yeah.
that way, so you'll have to still go by it, right?
Yeah,
In
it's
a
so
way, like we
annoying.
are trying to break the traditional ways of doing marketing of businesses, but yeah, of course, you have to
Yeah.
still
And
understand. So I also had one thought, right? Like now, traditional, and you made a very valid point about they're pretty much similar. Make sure that you put your energy in both and look at the whole holistic view of how you're going to go through that whole journey. But I also feel like, as a new business, say, traditional will really work for your local audience or for your local target customers, because they are going to move around that place every day, right?
so,
So,
I don't think this is true at all for any customer typing. I think whoever consumes that form of media has the highest chance of influence.
Okay,
Right?
fair
So
enough.
if you're somebody who reads a newspaper in, say, a very absurd language, like Latin for some reason, right? Imagine there's a Latin newspaper, you read the Latin newspaper. I can sell you a dictionary in Latin. It's just a
No,
function of, it doesn't matter in terms
my
of
my
medium.
point was basically, you have a business, you open it in North Vancouver, for example. You know that for a fact that even commute from other side, or like say from Surrey or the other South Vancouver to North Vancouver, is a long journey, right? You're not, even if you showed your digital ads to those folks out here in this area, there are very little chances that they will make a trip out there just to check it out.
Yeah,
So I
but
meant in that
you
way.
could just do hyper-local digital
Digital
targeting, right? With
Yeah.
postcodes. Postal. You just do that. Like,
Yeah.
it's, at some level, the credibility built of digital and traditional is a little different. Right? And the advantage of having print and hoardings and stuff like that, it's a little more credible than a digital hoarding.
Yeah.
Right?
Because
There
spend
is,
some money probably,
yeah,
you feel that.
there's a little bit of, it's a bias.
Yeah.
It is definitely a bias.
Yeah.
If somebody spent money to be on that hoarding,
There's something about that product which is speaking, and
exactly, right?
and but I only feel digital makes kind of sometimes more sense, is because it's always there, digitally available anywhere.
Digital
in
does
archives.
distribution better.
Yeah.
Exactly the concept, right?
Yeah.
Digital does discoverability and distribution better. For example, let's talk about that same Metro ad, right?
Yeah.
You were there, you saw it, I saw it. There would have been somebody who maybe doesn't use the Metro as frequently as I do. Somebody uses as less often as you do.
Yeah.
And they happened to just come in at the time when the train was coming.
Yeah.
They never saw that ad, right? So the thing about traditional is it's very hard to tell, hey, people saw this ad. We can speculate. For example, again, the reason for bringing newspapers up, or any magazine, even digitally, they'll tell you circulation numbers. If you're if you want to buy advertising space, you will have readership numbers.
Yeah.
You will know who's reading it. They have some sort of demographic style. For example, I've worked with health. We needed to reach only doctors, right? So we used to partner with certain sites and certain things to buy ad space only there, because it makes no sense
And
to
then
do it
you
anywhere else.
put the pixel in the website, and then
Exactly.
you could track it out.
Right? So traditionally, what would that mean? Anytime there's a conference, printouts.
Print out.
Give it to them.
Brochures and anything.
Right?
like
At the
flyers.
end of the day, everything starts and stops with your market. Right? And depending on how you define your market, Discovery should do that. That's the job. Now, where does digital really have this advantage? In traditional, assume that the same restaurant thing, if you just did your area, nobody outside your area would ever know. You have to wait for word of mouth to catch up. Digital can be used to promote word of mouth further.
Yeah.
Right? So it becomes a different use case. Somebody might travel. Even if you have 5 people who travel, compared to 0, 5 is great. Right? It's about making one incremental improvement almost. So I think it works, like, to that
Nice.
level. And another point, like, driving discovery, what's very important is, it depends on if you are discovering something new using a search function, using an influencer function, using a social media function.
Yeah.
For example, if an influencer that you really respect and follow, I know you like cameras, if somebody like a Casey Neistat or whoever is the modern Casey Neistat talks about cameras, you're more likely to take their advice seriously,
Hmm.
right? I may not be interested in cameras,
Yeah.
but
Makes sense.
if somebody talks to me about, hey, that is something that that's a game you have to play, and there are a few people that I listen to,
On YouTube.
yeah, I'm like, oh, he said it is a fun game.
Yeah.
And
At
then-
least we'll make an effort
yeah.
to try check it out. Maybe not buy it,
Exactly.
but we'll see and then.
Yeah, that's a function of me being broke.
Hmm.
That has nothing to do with this.
Or you being a bit frugal, right?
Yeah.
Like you thinking, okay, maybe I don't need it now because I'm not going to justify buying it.
Yes, and I also know 3 months from now there'll be a discount.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause that's how gaming
Gaming
works.
industries are. That's true. Very good example there.
So it's almost that, right?
Hmm.
And knowing these things. Now, imagine if you're discovering something new on social media. There are different ways discovery can happen. Affiliate is one.
Yeah.
Search, the explore function. Just using Instagram as an example.
Trends in a way, yeah.
Yeah,
Just going on
just the
trend.
search, explore trends, that one. You have Reels as another
Yeah.
explore, discover the option. You have stories, and you have posts.
Yeah.
So each one of these has a different function. A story means you have to discover something in 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Post maybe has more time than a story.
Yeah.
People will argue that it doesn't. I've found that I spend more time on Instagram posts than on stories.
Hmm.
So just my lived experience.
No, it's true because stories are just like you see this and tap and done. And
Correct.
I think that's the whole concept of story, right? It was made because they know that people don't want to spend even more than a second on
Yeah.
it, so makes sense.
And also Instagram, I think, is most social platforms, very bad place to do product sales. Very
Hmm.
good place to do product awareness.
Yeah.
Why? Because people trust influencers like influencers. If you have a good micro-influencer program, right, and a good affiliate marketing strategy, you can do discoverability so well, so quickly,
Hmm.
right? But if you want to I want to run sales ad from my page, you've missed out the point,
Yeah.
right? The
True.
point wasn't that. Because right now, imagine, let's take fashion, right? People like buying new clothes, especially this time of the year. How many of those clothes were bought now versus how many people put a lot of thought into it? A lot of clothes have been bought now,
Hmm.
right? When I say now, I mean the last month,
Hmm.
right? That's when most Christmas shopping would have happened.
Yeah.
Lots of discounts would have happened, right? If you are a brand and you want to capitalize more, what would you do? 2 months or 3 months from the year end, you would have started talking to your micro-influencers,
Yeah.
and you would have created a campaign to save these dresses
Yeah.
on social media, right?
That's
Not
where it makes
push
sense.
directly sales.
Exactly.
Push, save this dress, save this trend style, fashion
or
style, yada yada
a
yada.
day in my life where I
Yeah.
explore, and that reel would
Exactly,
generate more
and then buy
discoverability.
dress, and that's the idea. It's
Yeah.
like the concept of a digital fashion ramp walk is very true today. You can perform those things, and
Hmm.
the thing is, a ramp walk made sense because everyone was in the same place. But now and the other day I saw somebody who's a runner and model fashion stylist. They're a
Hmm.
jogger and fashion stylist.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is very weird mix of
Maybe
two
they're keeping
things.
themselves fit.
Extremely,
yeah.
right? The lady, I remember she's a national level jogger, like to the sense that she participates regularly in marathons.
Hmm.
And then she's like, half of her page is fashion, other half is running. And I was very confused. I'm like, I don't
Hmm.
understand what's happening, but great, you made it work, works for you,
Yeah.
right? So that's totally fine. So driving discover. Here's the worst. Neither do I like fashion nor jogging.
Wow.
Why did it show up on my feed? No
one
idea.
has.
But I
That's
like
the
sports.
black truth of
I like sports. I think it was just that.
probably that. Yeah.
And
So
I
they
like
chose the category, but not the subcategories what you
Yeah.
like. So, and fashion, yeah. I don't think you like that much.
I think this is the same thing from last episode. I could be
we
wrong.
need to work on that. So yeah, if we get more likes and subscriptions, probably we'll have some
Yes.
stream of new clothes on the way. But yeah, we are
to
hopeful.
that point, like, so much so, like, this is one thing that sort of goes against driving discoverability. But one of the ways content creators drive discoverability is merchandising.
Yeah.
Right? Merchandising is a great way to, hey, I'm a brand. It gets some money in, and it gets
And most of the
discovered.
time, the ones they're making the merchandising with, those companies are giving them good amount of rebates. So they're like, hey, let's
For
go
sure.
collab. We know that we don't want to really charge you, but let's do the profit sharing. Of course, that we're talking about the biggest of the biggest, right? In that case.
Yeah,
So
no-
yeah.
Even the smaller ones,
Mhm.
to that level, like, it depends. Are you doing an influencer program or an affiliate program, right? Is there a
Mm.
sales incentive or not? But largely, my big problem with that is I just don't think that I want to do like. I think most of the people who are listening to this have enough of stuff anyway that you don't need to buy something from me.
Yeah.
I don't like selling a mug. I don't like selling a T-shirt. There's mountains of clothes out there just rotting,
Yeah.
mountains of cups that have been unused. So why add another one that you'll use 2 times? Again, that's just me. Yes. Can you tell that I'm not into merchandising? Yeah.
Cool. Then what else can we talk about?
I think the other important part is again the memorability, right?
Mm.
How do you build for memory? And this is again from a content standpoint as well as a sustainability standpoint. Now, memory is built on a few principles. Memory is the time the event happened
Mhm.
and every time you've thought about it. Frequency is clearly a factor of memory. In an earlier episode from Wednesday, because this one will come out on Friday, you would have heard about the illusory truth effect,
Yeah.
which is a principle of frequency. Frequency affects memory a lot, right? People keep repeatedly saying the same thing, or the more repetition you have, great for memory.
Mhm.
The second part of this is memory happens when there's a, I would say, emotional experience, right? Or strong or weak, but there's some emotion associated with it.
Hmm.
Which is to say, you don't necessarily remember what happened, you remember how you felt,
Yeah.
right? This is why, like, pride is a great emotion. Now, as far as marketeers go, there's certain things we use always. For example, sex is one of those things that comes as a strong emotion. Protection of children and your kids is another very strong thing. Like,
Automobile
yeah,
uses that
and
all the
showing
day.
empathy of your children as well. Like, for
Mm.
example, Surf Excel, right? If your clothes get ruined just because you were having fun as a child,
Hmm.
great, right? Love that entire
Yeah.
thing. And if you're able to show your someone else's child having empathy, these are very good connection points, right? So brands use this a lot to build memory, like to build a recall. And the third part of this, and this is how I would say we as writers and brand strategists really have to think about it. When it comes to memory and experience or any emotion, an emotion is a physical experience as well. As much
Mhm.
as it is in your mind and cognitive, it is physical. Anger does not feel the same way as happiness physically. It
Yeah.
just doesn't.
Yeah.
Right? So, can you concentrate on the physicality of the emotion and bring that out?
Nice.
Right? If
Love
you
it.
were to bring out surprise, somebody has to pretend to be surprised. Right? And it's not just surprise as an emotion, but surprise comes with shock.
Yeah.
Right? It comes with, oh, there's a lot of things that surprise encapsulates.
Hmm.
Look at Kinder Joy's ads.
Yeah. Amazing.
That's what's built on. Right? The insight is, can I visualize surprise? I think like this is where some incredible abstract artists and script writers exist in that
Mhm.
realm. They do some mad good work, but this is purely creative,
Mhm.
and it helps discoverability and not much.
Hmm.
Doesn't necessarily work as a sales function. I think some brands can do a better job. Take Oreos. Honestly, Oreo I think has one of the weirdest freaking strategies I've ever seen in my life. Most of the Oreo ads are stay playful or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Literally every one of those situations, Oreo is being used as an ingredient.
Hmm.
And half of those times, whenever you've cooked with Oreos, I'll tell you this too, even in professional settings. Whenever you're making an Oreo cake, half the Oreo pack is eaten by the person cooking it.
Yeah. True.
Like as you're cooking it, it's just like
Eating it and testing it out.
and that's such a good insight for Oreo to work on and
Yeah.
call it being playful. You should not be eating those many Oreos.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the first thing.
Yeah, but discoverability,
Is about that.
yeah, and in social media, a great way to go about discoverability, Falcon, is moment marketing. You and I have spoken about this. I'm a huge fan of moment marketing, dude. If you can capture the moment which is happening right now and your brand can participate, congratulations, you're building memory,
Yeah.
right? You're not saying some random, like, imagine everyone's like, Lionel Messi won the World Cup. All brands are wishing. And you are like, from tomorrow, one packet free with one purchase. You didn't care about Messi, dude. The entire world cares about Messi. Nobody cares about you as a
Yeah.
brand.
Exactly.
So always and social media be participative in moments, I would say. It's
Definitely, yeah.
great for discoverability.
That's why I like sometimes in the different brands jumping into the different comment sections and just talking good things about each other. Like really creates a movement in a way where there was no movement, but it created one. So that
Yep.
can be really cool. I think I've seen some great brands which you would never see them working together doing it. So that's amazing. Like I think Nike has done that with Adidas once, and vice versa, and
I'll
that's
also say
amazing.
it's in today's world that particular thing is a little challenging primarily because different agencies own different brands.
Yeah,
And
that's also
sometimes it becomes like process of coordinating.
before it was easier.
Yeah, before it was a little
The world was
easier.
much easier that way. Yeah.
Oh, because I remember we were doing something like this once,
Mm-hmm.
and it just became that hey, it was very easy for the brands that we already worked with to participate. But getting other brands to like do it, they're like, "What's in it for me?" I'm like, "Dude, it's a tweet. What do you think is gonna happen? Like, it's not. It's just participate, man. Be fun.
Yeah.
Be fun. It's not like freaking rocket science. You don't have to do everything. Like, this is not my brand image. I'm like, your brand image was written before Twitter existed.
Exactly.
Right?
X
Like,
existed.
before X existed. Like, that for sure. I'm talking like even Twitter existed.
Yeah.
Like, that's when you wrote your brand statement and your brand book. Like, move on. You can't be stuck in the past, right? And being memorable is an important part of discoverability. Right? And again, the idea of discoverability to me is more rooted in memory.
So I think talking about the memory, I gave you that example of Casey Neistat, right? Like I'll show you that campaign, and I will try to put the link in the description too. Nike reached out to him. They had something called a Nike Fuel Band. Doesn't exist anymore, but for the ones who were way before time, they know that technology. It was a really beautiful device created. Nike reached out to him and said, "Hey, want to create a campaign with you?" He said, "Give me the marketing budget, whatever you're thinking of. I will create something out of my own." What he did is he took that money, traveled around the world, like some places in the world, and really did not show the product. Maybe showed it here and there in between, but probably showed it in the end. In the starting, he showed it getting unboxed, wearing it, and then getting out of his office. And that's one of the most memorable Nike ad I've seen by a content creator who's not even affiliated to Nike. He never said that this is great, I'm paid. No, just there. And I think what we're talking about memory, right? I knew about Nike Fuel Band before because I used to work for Nike in a way as an for an agency, and we used to work as a client. But yeah, it was wonderful. Like I think that memory is like a core memory in a way. I would say in terms of marketing discoverability, like it's just amazing what he did at that time. Nobody else was thinking that way. They all had a script written, talk about it, no creative input, but he took his own personality, discovered something about that fuel band and made it into his own. So that's amazing.
And it's also very important to like really, because some of the things you mentioned, right? Let's look at two particular kinds of industries. First one, video games. There is a great sense of memory with video games.
Yeah.
Right? Because a video game allows you to create something.
Yeah.
Now, why is this important? Because in storytelling, especially in branded storytelling, you have brand tells generic story, brand tells specific story, and brand co-creates story with audience. It is hard to do three. I think, which is why one of my favorite ads this year was that Nescafe, that the Shah Rukh Khan ad, dude, where you could participate. Participate in an ad where you got to be on camera with Shah Rukh Khan.
Yeah.
Whoa, big deal, yeah. Amazing. That was awesome as far as the campaign goes. I think people are going to remember it for their lives.
Yeah.
Right? Whoever took part in it, they'll be like, I was in an ad with Shah Rukh Khan, such a big deal. And that was the sentiment analysis as well after the campaign finished, which shows how effective something like that is.
Yeah.
It is super effective to co-create ads with your audiences, and that's what gaming is about. Gaming is about sharing that experience. Yeah. That's why I really, really dig that entire ecosystem. Think of beating a hot boss, right? Every gamer knows that feeling. And you just have to get into it, and they'll tell you, you'll hear about different games.
Yeah.
Right? The second one, as far as industries go, is basically cars to some level.
Yeah. It's all experience and memory, right?
Yeah.
There's a recent one which came out by BMW. I think it just came out this week or last week, where the previous one they made was a relationship between a father and a son, and they just built upon that this year, and they made it more fun, like more emotional, and I think talks about the brand. It talks about the joy of driving, but it also talks about that main bond between a father and a son.
So that's what I would call specific story.
Yeah.
Right? It's not generic. So it could be generic. I haven't seen that. It could be generic enough. It could be highly specific. highly specific storytelling is similar to what Nike does.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, Roger Federer's story, right?
Wi-
Nadal's
Serena
story,
Williams,
whoever,
yeah.
Serena Williams, XYZ, all athletes' story, right? That really makes sense. And I think sports is a great category. To think of like becoming a fan of a football club,
Yeah.
right? It's just you hearing stories about the club, and you're just like pick a choice. I literally have a friend whose favorite club is Arsenal. Why is his favorite club Arsenal? He bought FIFA. It was the first club he saw. It's like cool favorite club,
Wow.
and since then he is today a passionate fan of the club.
Wow.
There was no rhyme or reason or any of it.
But he
It
discovered
was
that club
discovered.
through that.
Now,
Amazing.
you want to know something very funny? And there is a channel in India called Archduck. Archduck default opens on your set-top boxes. That's why it
Oh.
has the highest TRP in India.
Wow. I
Because
had no
it by
clue.
default opens Archduck. So if you by default open there,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a higher rating. Because
Quick fact
Same
about me, I
idea.
don't even have a setup box.
yeah,
from
neither
past
do I.
10
But I
years.
was reading.
That's so cool.
I
Yeah.
had to look at the advertising information, right, to see
Hmm.
what is happening.
Yeah.
But same way, if you're by default A,
Yeah.
which is why sometimes you would have seen people really want the first slot in like elections and stuff. They will go out of their way. Run.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, what?
And even this way, it spoke about Astak, right? The same way in automobile industries, you have now this collaboration with Android getting into the car systems because
Mm.
it's just inbuilt and it just you get discovered if you had an iOS device. In North America, there's a lot of iOS devices. iPhones are the big thing here, and many of them don't even know what Android is, right? So this way, you could get discovered to a operating system or a whole platform you knew nothing about. So
Yep.
very quick and easy way to get into a system, but it's very interesting. Like you get discovered, you discover it, and I'm pretty sure a lot of folks saw it the first time. Maybe the baby boomers who are seeing it now because they have always been with iPhone. So yeah, it's very interesting. That could be one.
Yep.
And there are so many endless
There
possibilities, and we can
endless
go
ways
about
to get
it.
discovered. Right? Think of like again, something very silly like in India, Ola cabs. You have the screen in the premium
Yeah.
cabs.
I think
yeah.
it was a
And-
big thing when it came then,
Yeah.
and
I'm not
too
sure if it is now, but you could buy advertising space inside a cab.
Yes.
You can buy advertising space inside an auto. You can buy
You buy the
any
advertising space in gaming itself, right?
Yeah,
All the
in
mobile
gaming, yeah.
games is the biggest
Yep,
revenue
but
for
that's
those.
very costly, dude.
Yeah, but it's
That-
amazing.
That's
for
costly.
Them.
Yeah.
The Candy Crush
yes.
was because of that. They never
So
charged.
all of these are very impactful to understand that the core point of distribution is recall frequency.
Mhm.
Like many people need to be able to listen to it. It makes no sense. This is my personal grievance, right? Because I'm so tired of B2B niches.
Mhm.
Like people think all of marketing is B2B because B2B is the loudest on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Right, and everyone's learning from LinkedIn or
Yeah.
some bullshit on social media, and they're like, the entire world works like this. No, it doesn't.
Exactly.
When was the last time you thought about which chocolate you want to buy when you didn't have your favorite chocolate? You didn't. You just went for the next best one. Literally, most people in the last few weeks would have bought groceries, nothing big. They're not buying new technology that often. It's
Mm.
just not a thing. You're not buying new houses, new cars. You're buying very simple stuff.
Yeah.
That's where core branding happens. That's where marketing really happens.
Hmm.
Right? You have to create new markets. You have to figure out all these things. And when we talk about discoverability in all of these things, the only way to win is by being memorable. It is by being memorable. What happened here? Yeah, but it's fine. You want some water?
Yeah, I'm going to take some water.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was very weird. But to that point, discoverability is to me largely about memorability. The more we build for memorability, the better you're going to be discovered as a brand, the better the kind of work that is being accomplished. And I just think it's a good job in marketing if you're better at being discovered.
I'm back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's pretty much what it is to me. And why I keep stressing on this so much is people really need to do more than 10 things. For example, right? People are like, oh, have a YouTube channel, have this, have that.
Yeah.
Why would you want to have 30 different channels and mediums unless distribution optimization was not the idea?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just having a channel is pointless. You got to optimize distribution in each one of them. You got to
Yeah.
optimize discovery. And a lot of discovery is, again, I'm not the biggest fan of pipelines and funnels, but
Mm-hmm.
that's step one. Somebody needs to know you exist. It's what I keep telling about, for example, if you wanted to get into a particular job, right, the first thing you have to know is how to do that job, and that job opening exists.
Yeah.
If in your life you've never come across something like construction, right, you would never consider construction as a career, right? If you've never come across like phones, you would never consider technology as a career,
Yeah.
right? You just wouldn't. So
That's
what
been
you're
discovered.
exposed to is really, it drives what you become and what you choose. And what you are exposed to is less important than what you remember about being exposed to, in that sense. If you're creating memorability, you're just creating better ads. The ways you can create memorability, again, recall being a factor, emotions being a factor, physicality of emotions being a factor. You need good writers, you need good directors, you need good people who execute on all of this. That's when you have one good marketing campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't have it regularly, people.
So true.
One good stuff, you need this.
That's true. Yeah. It's only going to hit once the home run, not always.
Yeah, that's pretty much most of, I think, this entire
Yeah.
thing of driving discoverability. In one of the other episodes that we do, we are going to be creating our own distribution strategy on camera.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun, and that's
Lot of
gonna
fun.
we're gonna link this over there as well.
Yeah.
So that way you can go from here to there, or there from there to here, because this is more of a conversation and less of an exercise. That is more of an exercise, less of a conversation. So that's it, guys. Hopefully you had fun in this week's episode of Theory Made Fun.
I had fun, yeah. At least.
Shantanu had fun. It's so much fun that he started coughing like
Yeah,
he's gonna
I
die
was like-
any minute. He was like, "Look at how much fun I'm
I
having."
discovered water and then it really worked out for me. I did not consider it. It was an impulse water buy. But yeah, it was amazing, and hopefully you guys liked it, and like, share, subscribe, and then see you next Wednesday or Friday depending on which playlist it goes on. And yeah, comment below because that's very important for us. And
Yes, please.
sure.
You know how the algorithm works. Like, comment, share, subscribe.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.